Long before the first pyramids pierced the skies, before the names of kings echoed through marble halls, there was silence. A silence broken only by the wind across the plains of ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, and perhaps something far older. For buried beneath its sands lies a story that challenges everything we think we know about the dawn of humankind. A story written not in ink, but in clay, inscribed by hands that claim to have been guided by gods who came from the stars. Have you ever wondered if the roots of our civilization reach farther back than history dares to record? Because according to the ancient Sumerians, humanity didn't rise from the soil of Earth by chance. We were created, designed, even, by beings they called the Anunnaki. Imagine it. 4,500 centuries ago, long before Egypt, before Babylon. The skies over the Fertile Crescent shimmered with myths of visitors descending from the heavens. Not spirits, not mere deities, but flesh and blood beings who walked among men, teaching them the ways of writing, agriculture, architecture, and kingship itself. It sounds impossible, mythic, and yet their words endure. Thousands of cuneiform tablets discovered in the ruins of ancient cities like Uruk, Nippur, and Eridu tell a story not of superstition, but of memory. These tablets describe in exquisite detail a world where gods ruled like men, where the heavens and the earth were once united. But who were these gods? And how could a civilization over 6,000 years ago possess astronomical knowledge rivaling that of modern science? They mapped the movements of planets beyond what the naked eye can see. They calculated the precession of the equinoxes. They even described the creation of humankind in a process eerily similar to genetic engineering. Archaeologist George Smith, who first translated fragments of the Epic of Gilgamesh in 1872, was stunned by what he read. Here was a flood story nearly identical to the one in Genesis, yet thousands of years older. If this was myth, it was a myth that somehow echoed across continents, cultures, and millennia. But one discovery stood apart from all the rest. In the ruins of the Sumerian city of Nippur, scholars unearthed a series of tablets describing events that, if true, rewrite the very timeline of our species. The text spoke of a time before kingship descended from heaven, when the Anunnaki ruled the earth for hundreds of thousands of years. Each reign was measured in tens of thousands of years, not lifetimes, but epochs. According to these records, humanity was fashioned by these celestial beings to serve them, to mine gold, to build cities, to maintain their order. It's a story that blurs the line between mythology and history, and yet, as modern researchers like Zecharia Sitchin would later claim, the details align with a cosmic narrative hidden in plain sight. Sitchin believed these gods weren't gods at all, but extraterrestrial visitors from a planet called Nibiru, whose elongated orbit brings it close to Earth every 3,600 years. To mainstream scholars, this theory was unthinkable, pseudoscience. But for those who've studied the tablets themselves, the question remains, how could such ancient people know what they knew? The Sumerians described our solar system with uncanny precision, naming planets, their relative sizes, even the presence of a 12th celestial body unseen until modern times. Coincidence or recollection? Each shard of clay seems to whisper the same forbidden truth. Humanity's story didn't begin in the Fertile Crescent, it resumed there. And so the question remains, who were the Anunnaki really? Messengers of the gods? Astronomical allegory? Or something far stranger, an advanced civilization from the stars whose legacy still shapes us today? Because if even a fraction of what these ancient tablets claim is true, then history as we know it is only the final chapter of a story that began 450,000 years ago. Picture this: the winds of Mesopotamia sweep across a desolate plain. The air is heavy with dust, but beneath it lies something remarkable, the remnants of humanity's first city. Long before Babylon's Hanging Gardens or Egypt's Golden Tombs, there was Eridu, the city the Sumerians called Eriduga, the home of the mighty ones. According to their own records, Eridu wasn't built by humans at all. It was founded by the gods. Imagine standing at its centre 6,000 years before the birth of Christ. There are no empires yet, no kings, only scattered tribes along the Tigris and Euphrates. But here, In Eridu, something entirely different is taking shape. Monumental temples of baked clay, canals lined with reeds, and towering ziggurats rising like stairways to the heavens. The tablets call this the first time, the era when kingship descended from heaven. And the being who ruled first was not a man, but a god, Enki, lord of the Abzu, keeper of knowledge and master of creation. Enki, the Sumerians wrote, came from the deep waters beneath the earth, but his wisdom reached the stars. He was the craftsman of life, the one who fashioned mankind from clay and breathed the spark of consciousness into us. He ruled not through power, but through knowledge, teaching early humans irrigation, writing, mathematics, and the secrets of metal. Archaeologists who unearthed Eridu found layer upon layer of temple foundations, 18 in total, built one atop the other, stretching back nearly 7,000 years. To the Sumerians, each rebuild marked the return of Enki, the renewal of divine order. But the oldest layers, those tell a story that feels out of place in time. They date to an era when humanity was still supposed to be primitive. No cities, no agriculture, no organized worship. And yet here was evidence of all three, appearing suddenly and fully formed. Civilization didn't evolve here, it arrived. This sudden leap, this spark of knowledge, is one of the great mysteries of archaeology. How did our ancestors go from hunter-gatherers to city builders almost overnight? Mainstream historians call it the Sumerian miracle. The tablets call it something else entirely, divine instruction. But Enki was not alone. From the heavens descended other beings, the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came. Among them was Enlil, Enki's half-brother, stern, commanding, and jealous of humanity's growing potential. Where Enki was the giver, Enlil was the judge. He ruled from the highlands, in the city of Nippur, enforcing divine order with ruthless precision. Together these two forces shaped early civilization, creation and control, knowledge and obedience. Their rivalry would define the destiny of humankind. In the temple hymns, Enki is praised as the father of wisdom, while Enlil is called the Great Mountain. But between their lines lies tension, a cosmic disagreement about humanity's role. Enki believed humans were partners to the gods, capable of learning and growth. Enlil saw them as servants, useful but expendable. It was this clash, the tablets say, that set into motion the great upheavals to come. The flood, the fall of cities, the exile of the gods themselves. And if we listen closely, we can still hear the echoes of their feud in later myths. The serpent and the Lord, Prometheus and Zeus, even the tale of Eden. Modern researchers examining these parallels have begun to suspect that the Sumerian stories weren't mere legends. They were the source code of later religions. Every god, every creation myth, every divine rebellion, all tracing back to Eridu and the first gods of Earth. So the question remains, were Enki and Enlil ancient kings later deified? Were they metaphors for natural forces, rivers and storms? Or were they, as some believe, emissaries from another world who sparked civilization itself? The clay tablets don't whisper their secrets easily. Their language is ancient, their symbols layered with meaning. But across them all, one phrase repeats like a pulse through time. The gods came down and they created order on earth. And that order, the Sumerians tell us, began right here at Eridu, the city of the first gods. Imagine standing under the vast star-filled sky of the ancient Mesopotamian plain. The sun has set, and a thin mist rises from the rivers. The world is silent, yet there is movement, something extraordinary, something impossible. According to the Sumerian tablets, this is the moment the Anunnaki arrived on Earth. They did not come in ships as we imagine modern astronauts, but in celestial vessels described as skyboats and flying chariots that descended from the heavens with light brighter than the sun. The tablets speak of thunder and fire accompanying their descent, and of a divine presence that the early humans could barely comprehend. Among the first to step onto the plain was Anu, the supreme sky god, whose authority surpassed all others. He came not alone, but accompanied by a council of gods, the Anunnaki, meaning those of royal blood, or those who from heaven came to earth. Each had a role, Enki, master of knowledge and creation, Enlil, the enforcer of divine order, Ninhursag, mother of life, and many others whose names and functions are recorded in painstaking detail across the thousands of clay tablets unearthed at Eridu, and Nippur. These beings, the texts claim, had a mission, one that would shape the very fate of humanity. Gold. Earth's abundant riches were not merely resources for survival. They were essential for sustaining the Anunnaki's homeworld, a distant celestial body called Nibiru. Some scholars, like Zechariah Sitchin, suggest that the Anunnaki required the gold for its unique properties, to repair their atmosphere or even as a source of energy. Whether that is myth or fact, the tablets make it clear humans were created to serve this mission. The first humans, according to Enki, were the product of genetic experimentation. Clay was mixed with divine essence, a poetic phrase, but one that hints at knowledge far beyond primitive technology. Humans were not simply born, they were designed to labour, to build, to mine, and to sustain the gods' needs. And yet, even in these early days, the Sumerians describe a spark of independence, a consciousness, an awareness that separated man from mere tool or beast. But not all of the Anunnaki agreed on humanity's role. Enlil, the enforcer, was wary of these beings who might rise too far, who might challenge the authority of the gods themselves. Conflict brewed in the heavens and on the earth. Enki, the teacher, secretly nurtured humanity's potential, while Enlil plotted to curb it. This rivalry, the texts suggest, would echo through history, shaping the cycles of civilization, the rise and fall of cities, and even the story of the Great Flood. Archaeological evidence, when read through this lens, becomes strangely compelling. Cities like Ur and Eridu appear suddenly in the archaeological record, fully formed, with advanced architecture, irrigation systems, and astronomical observatories. Ancient Sumerians recorded precise movements of the planets, the stars, and the constellations, knowledge supposedly beyond the reach of a primitive people. Was this the gift of the Anunnaki, as the texts claim, or simply the brilliance of human ingenuity? The debate continues, but the tablets themselves suggest something far stranger than history textbooks allow. And then there are the inscriptions describing the Anunnaki themselves, not as abstract gods, but as physical beings, described in human terms but possessing extraordinary longevity, immense knowledge, and technology indistinguishable from magic. They worked alongside humans, taught them the arts of civilization, and sometimes, according to the tablets, walked among them unnoticed, observing and guiding. Some researchers argue this is purely symbolic, a mythic way to explain humanity's sudden ascent. Others suggest that the tablets preserve a memory of real events, distorted over millennia into the language of gods and magic. Whatever the truth, the idea that humans were deliberately guided, or even engineered, by an advanced extraterrestrial intelligence remains one of the most compelling, controversial, and haunting ideas in all of history. The arrival of the Anunnaki was not merely an event, it was the birth of a paradigm. Civilization as we know it, kings, temples, laws, astronomy, and written language, all bear their mark. According to the Sumerians, the gods came from the stars, they walked among men, and they left humanity with both knowledge and responsibility, a fragile spark that could either thrive or destroy itself. And so, the question lingers in the wind over the plains of Mesopotamia. If the Anunnaki truly descended from the heavens, what secrets did they bring with them? What knowledge was given to humanity, and what was withheld? And most haunting of all, are they still out there, somewhere beyond the stars, waiting for the time when their work on Earth is complete? Close your eyes for a moment and picture the dawn of civilization. The rivers of Mesopotamia wind through fertile plains, smoke rises from clay ovens, children chase one another across reeds and mud bricks. Humanity is awake, but only just. And yet, in the shadow of the first ziggurats, something extraordinary is unfolding. Knowledge unlike anything the world had ever known is being shared with men. The Sumerian tablets describe it with reverence, almost fear. They speak of secrets of the heavens, of laws of life and death, of mysteries buried in the movements of planets and stars. This was knowledge the gods considered too powerful for ordinary humans, yet it was given to them anyway, by Enki, the god of wisdom. Imagine an astronomer 6,000 years ago looking up at the sky, guided by Enki's instructions. He charts the path of planets unseen by the naked eye, maps constellations, and calculates cycles of time spanning tens of thousands of years. These calculations are precise, written in cuneiform symbols on clay tablets. To a modern observer, they are almost indistinguishable from contemporary astronomical charts. How could humans in what we call the Stone Age possess such understanding? The tablets hint at a teacher, a god, or perhaps a being from another world, who instructed them directly. But it wasn't just astronomy. The Anunnaki, the tablets claim, shared engineering knowledge. They taught humans to build canals, dams, and temples capable of withstanding floods. They introduced metallurgy, showing humans how to extract gold and other precious minerals from the earth. Some inscriptions even describe machines, moving chariots, powered by wind or water, devices that fly across the heavens, and instruments capable of measuring time with unprecedented precision. Yet the knowledge came with warnings. The tablets are clear. Humans were not to misuse it. Certain wisdom was forbidden. The Sumerians refer to it as the hidden mysteries, teachings reserved for the gods alone. These included the secrets of life and death, genetics, and the creation of humankind itself. The texts hint that these forbidden lessons could either elevate humanity to godhood or lead to its destruction. Some scholars believe this forbidden knowledge is allegorical, a poetic explanation for humanity's sudden leap in culture and technology. Others argue that the specificity of the tablets suggests something far more literal, a blueprint left by beings whose understanding far exceeded anything humans could naturally conceive. And then there are the most mysterious of all Sumerian instructions, those concerning the Anunnaki's celestial origins. The tablets describe planets beyond the naked eye, elliptical orbits, and cycles of 3,600 years, knowledge that would not be discovered by modern astronomers until millennia later. Why would an early civilization possess such advanced cosmology unless they had been taught by beings who had already travelled the stars? This is where the line between myth and history begins to blur. Some suggest the Anunnaki were gods in the ancient imagination. Others, like Zechariah Sitchin, claim they were extraterrestrials whose technology and knowledge were encoded into stories, disguised as myth. Every tablet, every inscription, every clay fragment seems to pulse with an idea both fascinating and terrifying, that humanity's origins are not wholly of this world. And yet the Sumerians offer another layer of caution. They warn that knowledge once given is dangerous if misused. The very same wisdom that allowed cities to flourish could, if misunderstood, bring about catastrophe. Some believe these warnings are embedded in the stories of the Great Flood, the exile of the gods, and the destruction of early civilizations, a cosmic lesson written in clay. So we are left with a paradox. Humanity was gifted knowledge that could have made them godlike, yet the majority of it remains hidden, lost, or incomprehensible. The Anunnaki left us instructions, but not the full picture. They gave us tools, but not the key. And as the wind sweeps across the Mesopotamian plains, one question lingers. What secrets did the Anunnaki consider too dangerous for mankind? What knowledge, if uncovered, could change everything we think we know about our past, and perhaps our future? Imagine the world of ancient Mesopotamia, not as we know it, but as the Sumerians recorded it. A land rich with rivers, plains, and untapped resources. This world, they tell us, was not only home to early humans, but also to the Anunnaki, beings from the heavens whose arrival marked the beginning of civilization, and whose purpose was, above all, driven by gold. The clay tablets are unusually specific. They describe the Anunnaki descending to Earth with a mission to extract gold from the planet's mines, not for wealth, not for prestige, but for survival, or so the texts imply. According to some interpretations, this gold was needed to maintain the Anunnaki's homeworld, Nibiru, shielding its atmosphere or sustaining their technological civilization. Others suggest it had mystical or cosmic significance, a form of energy that Earth uniquely possessed. Picture the first Anunnaki laborers arriving in the mountains and deserts, marking out veins of gold and teaching humans how to dig, smelt, and transport it. But this was no ordinary labor. The texts describe the first humans as creations of Enki, modelled from clay and infused with life. These early workers were not free. They were made to serve the gods, to toil in the mines under the guidance, or sometimes under the oppression, of their celestial overseers. Here we encounter one of the most astonishing claims in the Sumerian record. The creation of humankind was not a singular event, nor a simple myth. It was an experiment, carefully planned to produce a workforce capable of sustaining the Anunnaki's ambitions on Earth. Enki is described as the giver of life, and the one who took responsibility for nurturing these first humans, teaching them basic survival skills and the rudiments of civilization, all while under the watchful eye of Enlil, who grew increasingly impatient with their development. The Anunnaki's obsession with gold, however, went beyond practicality. The tablets hint at something deeper, a cosmic agenda. Gold, it seems, was a bridge between worlds, a conduit for knowledge, or a source of power that connected Earth with the heavens. Humans, in their servitude, were unwitting participants in a plan that reached far beyond their understanding. Every mine, every smelting operation, every labourer moulded from clay or blood was part of a narrative that spanned millennia. This focus on gold may explain a curious consistency in human history. Ancient mines from Africa to Mesopotamia, some dating tens of thousands of years ago, align with locations the Sumerians describe. Civilizations across continents developed metallurgy simultaneously, in ways that still puzzle archaeologists. Could this have been a coordinated effort by the Anunnaki, spreading their influence and their workforce across the planet? And yet, not all interactions were harmonious. The tablets record tension and rebellion. Early humans, though created to serve, were not entirely submissive. Some accounts suggest uprisings, some hint at human ingenuity exceeding divine expectations, and Enlil's frustration is recorded in dramatic detail, a divine wrath that would later culminate in the Great Flood. Enki, the benevolent creator, acted as mediator, preserving knowledge, teaching survival, and ensuring the experiment continued. The Golden Mission, then, is more than a myth about riches. It is a story of cosmic engineering, of a civilization deliberately guiding another, and of humans caught in a delicate balance between servitude and freedom. Gold was the tangible goal, but it was also symbolic, a reflection of the gods' power, of humanity's purpose, and of a celestial connection that humans would one day forget. And here lies the haunting question: if the Anunnaki came for gold, did they also leave behind lessons embedded in human culture, science, and myth? Were the treasures of our civilization not only material but intellectual, hidden codes, structures, and knowledge meant to survive long after the gods themselves departed? Because as the wind moves over the ancient plains of Sumer, the tablets whisper a subtle but chilling truth. The Anunnaki's mission was never just about gold. It was about humanity itself, a species moulded, observed, and perhaps tested for a destiny that we are only beginning to uncover. If you have ever held a history book, you may think of kings as human rulers, men who rose to power, built empires, and died within a normal lifetime. But the Sumerian tablets suggest something far stranger. They describe rulers who predated history as we know it, kings whose reigns stretched for tens of thousands of years, the antediluvian kings, the secret monarchs of antiquity. According to the Sumerian king list, Eridu was the cradle of kingship. Here, Enki entrusted the first ruler with governance over humans, establishing a divine order that would echo through the ages. But unlike ordinary monarchs, these rulers were not born of ordinary humans. The texts imply they were chosen by the gods themselves, or perhaps, in some interpretations, were part of the gods' lineage. The list reads like a timeline from myth, yet it is unnervingly precise. One king, Alulim, ruled Eridu for 28,800 years. Another, Alalgar, reigned for 36,000 years. These numbers defy comprehension, yet they are etched in clay with the same care and authority as later historical records. Scholars have long debated whether these lifespans are symbolic or literal. Could they represent dynastic lengths or reigns of influence, exaggerated into legend? Or do they hint at a reality lost to time, a human civilization guided by beings who defied mortality as we understand it? What makes these kings particularly fascinating is their role in bridging heaven and earth. They were not mere administrators. They were intermediaries between the Anunnaki and humanity. The tablets describe them as recipients of divine wisdom, rulers who carried knowledge of astronomy, medicine, agriculture, and ritual. They were living conduits of the god's plan, maintaining the structures and cities built under Enki's supervision. And yet, despite their divine association, the records speak of turbulence. Disputes among the Anunnaki spilled into the earthly realm, and the kings were often caught in the middle. Enlil, the enforcer, frequently judged these rulers, dictating decrees that would determine the survival or destruction of cities. The gods' rivalries were humanly comprehensible, but to the people, they must have seemed cosmic, unstoppable, and terrifying. One of the most mysterious elements is the eventual collapse of this ancient order. According to the tablets, a great flood, often paralleled in the biblical story of Noah, wiped away most of these first kings and reshaped civilization. The flood was not merely a natural disaster, it was framed as divine judgment, a reset of humanity. Yet the knowledge, the lineage, and the very memory of the Anunnaki endured, preserved in clay tablets, oral traditions, and perhaps in the genetic imprint of humanity itself. What does this mean for our understanding of kingship, civilization, and human history? If these records are accurate, the world's first rulers were not just humans, but agents of a higher intelligence, beings whose lifespans, knowledge, and influence were orders of magnitude beyond anything we associate with early civilization. Humanity, as we know it, was shaped under their guidance, molded to continue the mission that the Anunnaki had begun with the Golden Mission. Some historians dismiss these accounts as myth, allegory, or exaggeration. Others, especially proponents of alternative history, suggest that the tablets record a reality deliberately erased by later generations. Perhaps the knowledge of the antediluvian kings was dangerous, too destabilizing for ordinary humans, and so it was reinterpreted, transformed into legend. Yet the numbers, names, and cities remain, silent witnesses to a chapter of history most of us have never been taught. As we study these kings, the question that haunts scholars and enthusiasts alike is unavoidable. What else lies buried beneath the sands of Mesopotamia, waiting to challenge our assumptions about time, history, and human potential? The secret kings of antiquity were more than rulers. They were living bridges between humanity and the stars, witnesses to the Anunnaki's mission, and custodians of knowledge that modern civilizations have only begun to grasp. And in understanding their story, we begin to see the outlines of a past that is as enigmatic as it is ancient, a past that may stretch back hundreds of thousands of years, hidden in clay, waiting for us to rediscover it. Look up at the night sky. Imagine the stars stretching infinitely above, distant, cold, yet alive with patterns. Now, imagine a civilization, thousands of years ago, mapping those stars with astonishing precision, not as decoration, but as a calendar, a guide, and perhaps a message from the heavens. This is the world the Sumerians reveal through their tablets, a civilization that measured time on a scale that defies human comprehension. The Sumerians were obsessed with cycles, not only of the sun and moon, but of distant celestial bodies. Among the most mysterious was Nibiru, a planet described in detail across several cuneiform tablets. According to the texts, Nibiru follows an elongated orbit around the Sun, returning to the inner solar system approximately every 3,600 years. Each arrival was recorded with meticulous care, linked to events on Earth, and associated with the activities of the Anunnaki. This is where the term cosmic calendar takes on significance. The tablets are not merely a record of celestial observations, they are a chronicle of divine intervention, of kingship descending from the heavens, and of human history influenced by forces beyond Earth. They speak of long ages, of kings whose lifespans lasted tens of thousands of years, and of cycles of rise and fall that mirror Nibiru's passage. But how could humans of that era know such precise astronomical details? The texts suggest a teacher, Enki, the god of wisdom, instructing humanity in the measurement of time, the prediction of eclipses, and the movements of planets invisible to the naked eye. The Sumerians catalogued Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and even a 12th celestial body, long before modern astronomy confirmed their existence. Was this mere coincidence, careful observation, or divine knowledge passed down from the Anunnaki? One of the most fascinating elements of this cosmic record is the concept of precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis. The Sumerians calculated it thousands of years before Hipparchus, who is credited with discovering it in 127 BCE. Their observations were tied to rituals, agriculture, and the timing of kingship. In other words, their understanding of the heavens was inseparable from human society, a celestial blueprint that governed both divine and earthly order. The cosmic calendar also ties into the infamous Great Flood. Many scholars note that the timing of Nibiru's cycles corresponds closely with catastrophic events recorded in Sumerian texts. Was the flood a literal event triggered by celestial alignment, or a symbolic reset orchestrated by the Anunnaki? The tablets offer hints but no definitive answers, leaving modern readers to wonder about the intersection of astronomy, myth, and history. Some researchers, including Zikara Sitchin, argue that Nibiru's long orbit and the knowledge encoded in the tablets reveal the Anunnaki's long-term planning. They were not mere visitors. They were architects of a program spanning hundreds of thousands of years. Each orbit of Nibiru, each celestial alignment, was a checkpoint in the mission of guiding, shaping, and overseeing humanity. Yet the cosmic calendar is more than just numbers and orbits. It is a philosophical statement. The Sumerians viewed time as cyclical, not linear. Civilizations rise and fall like waves, guided by forces beyond human control. Kings, cities, and gods all exist within these cycles, suggesting that humanity is part of a cosmic rhythm far larger than individual lifetimes or even recorded history. As we try to decode these celestial patterns, one question becomes unavoidable. Did the Anunnaki leave this knowledge as a warning, a gift, or a test? Were humans meant to understand it fully, or merely to live within its cycles shaped by forces they could barely perceive? The tablets offer no simple answer. They speak only in symbols, numbers, and metaphors, hinting at knowledge that is simultaneously scientific, spiritual, and mysterious. And yet, the message is clear. The heavens are not silent, and the history of humanity is inseparable from the rhythm of the stars. In studying the cosmic calendar, we begin to glimpse a reality where time, space, and human civilization are intertwined, a legacy of the Anunnaki that stretches across millennia, encoded in clay and preserved in silence, waiting for us to finally understand it. Close your eyes and picture the landscape of ancient Mesopotamia. Endless plains stretch between the Tigris and Euphrates, dotted with reeds and shallow pools. Smoke rises from small human settlements, yet amidst this simplicity, something extraordinary begins to take shape: the first cities of the gods. The Sumerian tablets describe them as creations not entirely of human hands, but of divine guidance. Eridu, often called the first city, was said to be the home of Enki, the god of wisdom, who moulded humanity to labour, build and sustain civilization. The city was carefully planned: canals for irrigation, temples rising like stairways to the heavens, and dwellings aligned with celestial patterns. Humans were taught the arts of construction and administration, yet every brick and every canal was imbued with divine design. A few centuries later, the city of Uruk emerged, larger and more complex, said to be under the patronage of Inanna, goddess of love, war, and the stars. The tablets describe its walls stretching for miles, adorned with symbols and murals depicting the deeds of gods and kings. Its ziggurat towered over the plain, a literal bridge between earth and sky, and the centre of human-divine interaction. According to the texts, priests acted as intermediaries, receiving instructions from the gods and conveying them to the people, ensuring that civilization followed a pattern set from the heavens. Meanwhile, Nippur, the sacred city of Enlil, became the political and religious centre of Sumer. It was here that kings were crowned and decrees issued, all under the watchful gaze of the Anunnaki. The texts describe the city as meticulously planned, with roads, temples, and canals reflecting celestial alignments. The arrangement of its structures, according to modern researchers, mirrors astronomical patterns, suggesting the Sumerians incorporated divine knowledge into urban planning. What strikes archaeologists and historians alike is how suddenly these cities appeared. Unlike the gradual evolution of settlements in other parts of the world, Mesopotamian cities seem to emerge fully formed, with advanced architecture, irrigation systems, and social hierarchies already in place. The Sumerian explanation is that the gods themselves taught humans these skills. Enki, in particular, is credited with introducing agriculture, mathematics, and writing, a divine curriculum designed to elevate humanity to civilization almost overnight. The tablets also hint at a hidden layer of influence. Humans were not merely builders, they were collaborators in the Anunnaki's mission. Workers in mines, scribes, and artisans were often depicted as executing tasks assigned directly by the gods. Every city, every ziggurat, and every canal was a piece of a much larger plan, a cosmic design linking human labour with divine purpose. And yet, the texts reveal tension within this system. Enlil and Enki, though brothers, disagreed over humanity's role. Enlil often demanded stricter control, while Enki nurtured human potential, secretly granting knowledge and skills beyond what was authorized. These rivalries, recorded across tablets, may explain some of the conflicts described in early Sumerian history: sudden city collapses, floods, and upheavals that mirror divine interventions. But despite these tensions, the first cities of the gods endured. They became centers of administration, religion, and commerce, shaping the trajectory of human civilization for millennia. Clay tablets, now fragmented, still echo their grandeur: laws, astronomical observations, rituals, and economic records, a comprehensive record of humanity guided by forces beyond its understanding. The question that haunts modern observers is this: if these cities were truly built under divine supervision, how much of what we consider human ingenuity was actually borrowed, instructed, or even imposed by beings whose technology and knowledge we can scarcely imagine? Were humans truly free architects of their destiny, or were they participants in a long-term experiment orchestrated by the Anunnaki? As the sun sets over the plains once ruled by Enki, Inanna, and Enlil, the first cities of the gods stand as silent monuments. They are not only archaeological wonders, but also enduring reminders that the line between myth and history may be far thinner than we imagine, and that humanity's earlier steps towards civilization may have been guided by hands that descended from the stars. Imagine a world newly awakened to civilization. The first cities rising from the plains, rivers controlled by canals, the hum of human activity echoing across the fertile land. And in this world, the Sumerians tell us, there existed a framework far older and more imposing than any human institution: the divine laws, decreed by the Anunnaki themselves. The tablets describe these laws as more than mere rules. They were cosmic instructions, a moral and societal framework designed to maintain order among humans while serving the god's grand purpose. Enki, the god of wisdom and creation, is credited with teaching humans the essentials: honesty in trade, fairness in disputes, reverence for the gods, and respect for life. But Enlil, the enforcer, emphasized obedience, loyalty, and strict hierarchy, the balance of freedom and control embedded in the human experiment. These laws governed every aspect of life. Property, inheritance, marriage, and labor were codified not merely for convenience, but as part of a divine plan. According to the tablets, violations were punished not just socially, but spiritually, a reflection of the belief that humans were under constant observation by celestial beings. Some tablets even hint at surveillance like oversight, with Enlil and other gods monitoring adherence to rules, intervening when necessary to correct humanity's course. Yet the divine laws were not static. The texts suggest that they evolved alongside humanity. As humans grew more sophisticated, the gods introduced new rules, refining societal norms to match their growing capabilities. Some scholars see this as a metaphor for the natural development of early law codes, while others suggest it reflects direct divine intervention, a hands-on approach to guiding civilization's moral and social evolution. Among the most famous of these early codes was the Code of Ur-Nammu, predating even the more well-known Code of Hammurabi. It emphasized justice, fairness, and protection for the weak, yet many of its edicts appear to trace back to the guidance of the gods themselves. Death, labor, restitution. These were all intertwined with divine oversight, forming a template for human civilization that persists in echoes across cultures and epochs. The divine laws also extended to religious observances. Humans were instructed on rituals, temple construction, and ceremonial rites designed to honor the Anunnaki and ensure cosmic harmony. Festivals mark celestial events, aligning human activity with astronomical cycles, a reflection of the Sumerians' profound understanding of the heavens, taught by their divine instructors. Yet there is an intriguing duality in these laws. On one hand, they empower humanity, teaching knowledge, ethics, and social order. On the other, they assert control, ensuring that humans remain subservient to the gods' ultimate plan. The Sumerians themselves seem to recognize this tension, writing of both the benevolence and the wrath of the gods, a delicate balance between guidance and domination. Some researchers argue that the divine laws were symbolic, a cultural memory of moral codes passed down through generations. Others suggest a more radical interpretation, that the laws were literal, enforceable commands from beings whose authority and technology exceeded human comprehension. In either case, the influence of these directives is unmistakable, shaping the trajectory of early civilization in ways that resonate even today. And perhaps most haunting of all, the tablets hint at the consequences of disobedience. Humanity, they warn, is capable of both great creation and profound destruction. The divine laws were not merely administrative, they were protective, a shield against humanity's potential self-destruction. Some scholars even see in these warnings a prescient understanding of our species' capacity for violence, environmental exploitation, and ethical failure. As we study these ancient edicts, one question rises above all others. Did the Anunnaki leave humanity these laws as guidance, as control, or as a test of whether humans could rise to the potential they had been given? And if the latter is true, how close are we now to the point the gods anticipated, a civilization fully capable of understanding its origins and destiny? This duality, knowledge as both boon and curse, is central to the Watcher's message. The Nephilim embodied this tension. Powerful, intelligent, and often destructive, they were living reminders of what happens when divine knowledge meets unchecked ambition. Their actions, as recorded in apocryphal texts, range from building monumental cities to waging devastating wars, leaving chaos in their wake. Consider humanity's earliest civilizations, which flourished under guidance reminiscent of the Watcher's influence. Sumer, Egypt, and the Indus Valley saw remarkable advances in writing, law, astronomy, and architecture. Yet even at the height of their sophistication, these societies struggled with greed, power struggles, and moral corruption. The Watcher's warnings were not theoretical, they were predictive, reflecting patterns the angels observed in human behavior. Knowledge without wisdom, the texts suggest, is a seed of chaos, and civilizations that fail to balance power with ethics are destined to falter. The Dead Sea Scrolls reinforce this perspective. Fragmentary passages describe the rise of kings and rulers who, inspired by the Watcher's knowledge, amassed power without regard for justice. Some texts explicitly link the misuse of celestial knowledge, astrology, divination, and ritual magic to social unrest, famine, and war. Here, the Watcher's prophecy takes on a chilling clarity. Humans capable of great creation can also unleash devastating destruction if ambition exceeds morality. Modern theorists draw parallels to our contemporary world. Technological advancement, political power, and global influence mirror the ancient dilemmas described in these texts. The lessons of the Watchers remain relevant. Unchecked ambition, whether in science, governance, or warfare, carries the potential for catastrophic consequences. The narrative of the Nephilim serves as a metaphor for this imbalance, a stark reminder that power and knowledge, when divorced from ethics, can overwhelm even the most resilient civilizations. But there's more to this story. The Watcher's caution extends beyond moral decay to the spiritual consequences of overreaching. Many scholars interpret their warnings as guidance to respect natural and divine order, suggesting that human ambition must be tempered not only by ethics, but by humility. Attempting to claim knowledge or power that surpasses one's rightful scope, the texts imply, risks both societal collapse and spiritual peril. The Nephilim, in this sense, are not merely historical or mythical, they are embodiments of the consequences of moral imbalance. Imagine standing before the ruins of a city destroyed by its own ambition, the echoes of knowledge and power mingling with the dust and wind. The Watcher's message resonates across time. Humanity's greatest achievements are inseparable from their potential for destruction. Their prophecy is a mirror, reflecting not only what was, but what could be if wisdom fails to accompany knowledge. As you drift deeper into the story, consider this. The warnings of the Watchers are not relics of the past. They are timeless lessons, challenging us to balance curiosity with ethics, innovation with restraint, and ambition with responsibility. The Watchers' prophecies were not limited to human behavior, knowledge, or ambition. They extended far beyond the Earth itself. Imagine looking up at the night sky, stars wheeling in patterns unchanged for millennia, and realizing that these patterns might hold warnings of impending catastrophe. According to ancient texts, the Watchers observed not only humanity, but the cosmos, predicting calamities that would ripple across civilizations and shape the course of history. Their messages were encoded in the stars, in stone monuments, and in cryptic writings, forming a tapestry of foresight that still resonates today. The Book of Enoch describes celestial disturbances, meteorological upheavals, and great floods as part of the Watchers' warnings. One fragment states, "The heavens shall pour upon the earth, and the foundations of men shall be shaken. Only those who heed the instruction shall endure." These passages suggest that the angels foresaw events far beyond the control of humanity, yet their guidance implied that preparation, moral rectitude, and understanding could mitigate disaster. The prophecy intertwines natural phenomena with ethical imperatives, emphasizing that human choices influence not only society, but survival itself. The Nephilim, as living embodiments of the Watcher's influence, also feature in these apocalyptic visions. Their immense strength, combined with human ambition, was predicted to exacerbate disasters, turning natural events into human crises. Some texts describe cities overrun by these giants, where floods, earthquakes, and famine coincided with moral corruption. The message is clear. Unchecked power, when combined with cosmic events, magnifies catastrophe. These narratives were preserved not as mere legend, but as warnings, urging early humans to respect knowledge, power, and the natural order. Archaeological evidence adds another layer of intrigue. Ancient civilizations across the globe constructed monumental structures aligned with celestial events, solstices, eclipses, planetary conjunctions, perhaps to track or even predict cosmic cycles. Sites like Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, and the pyramids of Giza reflect an understanding of astronomy that aligns uncannily with the Watcher's supposed teachings. Some researchers argue that these alignments were not purely ceremonial, but served as early warning systems, allowing humanity to prepare for cyclical catastrophes. Whether literal or symbolic, these alignments suggest that ancient people recognized patterns in the heavens that could impact life on Earth. The Dead Sea Scrolls provide additional insight. Certain passages describe the consequences of human hubris during cosmic events, including societal collapse, famine, and mass displacement. These warnings reinforce a recurring theme in the Watcher's prophecy. Humans must act with foresight and wisdom, or risk being swept away by forces beyond their control. Even in texts written thousands of years ago, there is an uncanny resonance with modern scientific understanding. Meteor impacts, volcanic eruptions, and climate shifts all echo the cataclysms foretold by these ancient observers. Some modern theorists extend this interpretation further, suggesting that the Watcher's knowledge may have included observations of astronomical events now confirmed by science, asteroid paths, planetary alignments, or solar cycles. The alignment of their warnings with events recorded across millennia hints at a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos. Others propose that the prophecies serve as allegory, a symbolic reflection of human vulnerability, emphasizing the moral dimension as much as the physical. Either way, the Watcher's message is compelling. Vigilance, preparation, and ethical behavior are essential for survival, in both a literal and spiritual sense. But there's more to this story. Beyond the immediate threats, the Watcher's cosmic warnings suggest a long-term perspective, a recognition that humanity exists within a vast, interconnected system. Their prophecies remind us that our choices are never isolated, that actions taken today can echo across centuries, influencing not only civilization, but the delicate balance between earth and sky. As you envision the heavens above, imagine the Watchers silently observing, leaving messages in stone and star alike. Their warnings are both practical and philosophical. Knowledge, morality, and preparedness must coexist, or even the strongest civilizations will falter. The influence of the Watchers does not end with ancient texts or monumental structures. It echoes across continents, embedded in the myths, legends, and oral traditions of countless cultures. Imagine a world before borders, where stories travelled by wind and river, shaping collective memory. From Mesopotamia to the Americas, from the Nile Valley to the mountains of Asia, recurring narratives describe celestial beings descending from the heavens, teaching forbidden knowledge and warning humanity of consequences yet to come. These myths, though separated by geography and language, share striking thematic parallels, suggesting that the story of the Watchers, or beings like them, was remembered universally. In Mesopotamian texts, such as the Sumerian king list and Akkadian epics, we find references to giants or divine watchers who guided humanity in its earliest days. These figures, often described as possessing great wisdom and extraordinary strength, oversaw the development of civilization, imparting knowledge of agriculture, law, and astronomy. Their fall or departure coincided with societal upheaval, floods, or other cataclysmic events, a recurring motif that parallels the warnings found in the Book of Enoch. Some scholars suggest that these tales served as historical allegories, preserving memory of interactions between humans and extraordinary beings whose guidance shaped early society. In the Americas, native legends describe sky beings and great giants who instructed humans in farming, astronomy, and ritual practices. The Maya, Aztec, and Inca traditions speak of celestial teachers descending from the heavens, often leaving behind artifacts, monumental structures, and advanced knowledge. Some researchers draw parallels between these legends and the Watchers, arguing that the stories reflect a shared archetype, beings of divine or cosmic origin. The Sumerian tablets, especially the Eridu Genesis and later the Epic of Gilgamesh, describe this event in striking detail. Long before Noah, before the biblical retellings that echoed through later civilizations, there was Ziusudra, the Sumerian hero chosen by the god Enki to survive when all others would perish. The story begins with conflict among the Anunnaki themselves. Humanity had grown noisy, unruly, and uncontrollable. Enlil, angered by humanity's defiance and overpopulation, decided it was time to cleanse the earth. The Council of Gods convened. Their decision was unanimous, except for one dissenting voice. Enki, humanity's protector, refused to accept their extinction. "They are our creation," the tablets record him saying. "Let them learn, not be destroyed." But Enlil's decree was law. The flood was coming. Enki, bound by divine oath not to directly oppose the council, found a loophole. He did not speak directly to Ziusudra, but whispered his warning through the walls of a reed hut, ensuring his message reached human ears without defiance. "Tear down your house and build a great boat," he instructed. "Take into it the seed of every living thing. The storm is coming, and with it, the end of the age." Then came the rain, 7 days and 7 nights of unending destruction. The winds howled, the land was swallowed, and even the gods were said to tremble before the force they had unleashed. In the chaos, the Anunnaki retreated to the heavens, watching from above as the world they had shaped dissolved beneath the waters. When the storm finally ceased, silence followed, the silence of a world reborn. Ziusudra's vessel came to rest on a distant mountain. He released a dove, then a raven, both of which returned with no sign of land. But finally, the third bird did not return. The waters were receding. Humanity would begin anew. When Ziusudra emerged, the gods descended once more. Enlil, at first furious that any had survived, soon relented. The destruction had fulfilled its purpose. The world had been purified, humanity humbled. Enki and Enlil reconciled, agreeing that never again would the gods destroy humanity so completely. Instead, they would guide from a distance, influencing rather than controlling, teaching rather than commanding. Modern scholars have long debated this flood narrative. Some see it as myth, an allegory for renewal and moral consequence. Others point to geological and archaeological evidence of a massive flood event around 10,000 BCE, coinciding with the end of the last ice age, a period when melting glaciers caused sea levels to rise catastrophically across Mesopotamia. Could the Sumerian story be a memory of that event, preserved through oral tradition and divine allegory? Yet there is another layer, one whispered among ancient astronaut theorists. They argue the flood was not purely natural, but engineered. A planetary event triggered perhaps by gravitational disturbances as Nibiru passed close to Earth. To the Sumerians, this would have appeared as divine will, but in truth, it might have been the catastrophic byproduct of celestial cycles the Anunnaki themselves anticipated. Whatever its cause, the flood marked a turning point, the end of the antediluvian age and the beginning of recorded human history. The kings who once ruled for tens of thousands of years were replaced by mortals whose reigns were measured in centuries, then decades. The gods retreated into myth, their influence still felt but no longer direct. Humanity, now scattered and scarred, began to rebuild. The Sumerians viewed this as the moment when divine and mortal destinies diverged. The Anunnaki no longer walked among men, they watched from afar, but they left behind traces, ziggurats, sacred geometry, star maps, and tablets filled with secrets. Each was a relic of an age when gods ruled the earth and the flood was their tool of renewal. As we uncover these fragments today, the question echoes across time. Was the Great Flood a divine punishment, a cosmic accident, or a carefully orchestrated reset? A way to erase what had gone wrong and begin the human experiment anew? The waters receded. The rivers returned to their beds, the plains dried, and the earth, once drowned, began to breathe again. Humanity emerged from the Great Flood scarred but resilient, carrying with them the memory of destruction and the fragments of divine knowledge that had survived. This was not the beginning of civilization from scratch. It was a rebirth, a second chance orchestrated by forces both human and divine. The Sumerian tablets are strikingly detailed in their account of this post-flood era. Ziusudra, the human chosen by Enki to survive, became a bridge between the divine and mortal worlds. He passed down instructions for rebuilding cities, cultivating crops, and preserving the wisdom that had been entrusted to humans before the deluge. In this way, the flood was not an erasure, but a purification. Humanity was to start anew, tempered by catastrophe, guided by fragments of the Anunnaki's knowledge. From the ruins of old cities, new settlements began to rise. Uruk and Eridu re-emerged, reconstructed with purpose and foresight. The surviving humans, under the subtle guidance of the Anunnaki, rebuilt irrigation systems, temples, and marketplaces. The ziggurats, rising once more from the mud, acted as both spiritual and practical centers, monuments to divine order and human ingenuity intertwined. Each brick, each canal, each sacred precinct carried echoes of lessons learned before the flood. The tablets reveal that Enki continued to play a crucial role. Though he no longer walked openly among humans, his influence persisted through priests, scribes, and leaders who acted as intermediaries. They were taught the principles of agriculture, writing, and astronomy, the same knowledge that had elevated civilization before the flood. In essence, humanity was given a second chance, but this time with careful oversight, guided, nurtured, but not entirely controlled. Meanwhile, Enlil's role shifted. Having witnessed the devastation caused by humanity's earlier transgressions, he adopted a more distant approach. His interventions became subtler, more strategic, often appearing as divine judgment only when necessary. The balance of power between Enki and Enlil reflected a cosmic lesson. Knowledge could elevate humanity, but misuse of that knowledge could bring catastrophic consequences. This period also saw the spread of survivors across continents. While Sumer became the heart of post-flood civilization, evidence suggests that knowledge and human populations moved outward, to Anatolia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and beyond. Ancient myths from multiple cultures echo the Sumerian story. Flood survivors rebuilding civilizations, guided by divine or semi-divine beings. Could this be the fingerprints of the Anunnaki, ensuring that humanity would not only survive but thrive across the globe? Technological and cultural innovations accelerated during this period. Writing evolved from simple pictographs to cuneiform, enabling the precise recording of history, trade, and celestial movements. Agriculture became more sophisticated, tools and metallurgy improved, and cities grew in complexity. Yet every advancement, according to the tablets, bore the imprint of the knowledge inherited from the pre-flood era, a civilization carefully nurtured by the Anunnaki. Some scholars argue that these post-flood developments were purely human innovation, but when examined alongside Sumerian records and archaeological evidence, a more compelling picture emerges. Humanity was rebuilding with memory and guidance, inheriting technologies, cosmology, and moral frameworks from both a lost generation and their divine overseers. Civilization was no longer an isolated experiment. It was part of a continuous plan, a tapestry woven across millennia. And yet, even as humanity rose, the lessons of the flood lingered. The memory of destruction and the fear of divine retribution instilled a cautious reverence for the powers above. Laws, rituals, and governance were designed not only for survival, but to maintain cosmic harmony, ensuring that humanity would avoid repeating the mistakes that led to the cataclysm. As the Sumerians rebuilt, one truth became clear: civilization is fragile, but it is also enduring. The flood may have erased the old order, but it could not erase knowledge. It could not erase the Anunnaki's influence, and it could not erase humanity's potential, the spark given to them long ago, now tempered by catastrophe and ready to flourish once more. Close your eyes and picture a world thousands of years after the Great Flood. Humanity has spread across the earth, cities are rising once again, and the memory of gods who walked among men is fading. Yet it is never truly lost. The Sumerians, in their meticulous clay tablets, ensured that the legacy of the Anunnaki would endure, encoded not just in history but in myth, ritual, and memory. The Anunnaki appear in countless myths and legends across civilizations. In Sumer, they were gods, rulers, and teachers. In Babylon, they became celestial judges. In later biblical texts, traces of their influence can be seen in the stories of creation, the flood, and divine law. Their names, deeds, and instructions travelled through time, sometimes altered, sometimes hidden, but always persistent. They became the archetypes of power, wisdom, and the mysteries of the heavens. Consider Inanna, goddess of love and war, whose journey through the underworld mirrors the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Scholars suggest her narrative preserves encoded wisdom about cosmic cycles, human psychology, and the delicate balance between order and chaos, lessons that the Anunnaki once taught directly to humanity. Similarly, Enki, the wise god of water and knowledge, emerges across myths as the bringer of culture, technology, and moral guidance. Even in stories where the gods are portrayed as vengeful or capricious, the echoes of their instruction remain. The tablets suggest that the Anunnaki intentionally embedded knowledge within myth, ensuring it would survive the loss of cities, floods, and the passage of millennia. Some legends describe their actions literally, while others encode them metaphorically. The alignment of stars, the rise of kings, or the emergence of written language. Myth became a vessel, a protective layer through which divine knowledge could reach humanity without risking immediate destruction or misunderstanding. But the legacy of the Anunnaki was not confined to stories alone. Archaeological evidence hints at their influence in architecture, urban planning, and ritual. Ziggurats, carefully aligned with celestial events, mirrored what the Anunnaki had taught in the pre-flood era. Early astronomy, mathematics, and even aspects of law reflect principles the gods instilled in humanity, demonstrating a continuity of knowledge spanning both time and catastrophe. Interestingly, the memory of the Anunnaki also adapted to human perception. As direct encounters faded, they became symbols, abstracted in art and literature. Humans revered them, feared them, and in some cases sought to emulate them. Temples, inscriptions, and ceremonial practices acted as both homage and a method of cultural preservation, allowing humanity to maintain a connection to knowledge that might otherwise have been lost. The spread of these myths beyond Mesopotamia suggests a deliberate diffusion of wisdom. Flood narratives in India, Egypt, and even the Americas show remarkable parallels to Sumerian accounts. Could these be the result of cultural memory preserved through migration and storytelling? Or are they echoes of a coordinated plan, a method through which the Anunnaki ensured their teachings would reach every corner of the world? Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of this legacy is its enduring mystery. The Anunnaki are never fully explained, their motives only partially revealed, their knowledge often cryptic. They challenge humanity to question its own history, to look beyond surface appearances and to consider that civilization, morality, and science may all have roots older and stranger than we imagine. In essence, the Anunnaki left humanity a gift wrapped in layers of myth, a puzzle of history, and a challenge to uncover truths long hidden. Their legacy is not just in the ruins of cities or the etched clay of tablets, but in the human mind itself, in our drive to question, to build, to reach for knowledge, and to seek connection with the cosmos. And so, as we read these ancient stories, one question remains. How much of what we call myth is memory, and how much of what we call history is prophecy? The Anunnaki's presence endures, not in flesh or blood, but in the whispers of civilizations, urging us to remember, to search, and perhaps to awaken to a knowledge that has been with us since the dawn of time. In the quiet corridors of ancient temples, among carvings weathered by time and sand, whispers persist, stories of forbidden technologies that once reshaped the earth. The Sumerian tablets speak of the Anunnaki not merely as gods but as engineers of creation, wielding instruments and machines that seem divine to the humans who witnessed them. And though the Great Flood had washed away much of their world, traces of this knowledge lingered, preserved in fragments, hidden in myths, and feared by those who understood its power. According to the Enuma Elish and other Mesopotamian texts, the Anunnaki possessed tools of such sophistication that they could alter landscapes, raise cities from marshland, and even manipulate the genetic essence of life itself. These were not mere metaphors for divine will, they were descriptions of technology mistaken for magic. The tablets of destiny, for example, often interpreted as celestial command records, could be seen as a form of advanced device, granting authority to those who possessed it. It was said to contain the blueprint of reality, dictating the laws of both heaven and earth. Archaeologists often dismiss these as poetic exaggerations. Yet, when we read of flying chariots that shone like the sun, or weapons that roared like thunder and left the ground scorched, one cannot help but wonder, were these the ancient world's attempts to describe technologies beyond comprehension? Could the so-called divine tools of the Anunnaki represent lost knowledge, remnants of a science far older than human civilization? The tablets also describe me, sacred decrees or codes that governed civilization, the foundation of art, music, kingship, and technology. Enki was said to safeguard these me within his temple at Eridu, distributing them to humanity with great caution. Some texts suggest these were not merely moral laws but technological protocols, data or energy inscriptions capable of altering physical and metaphysical systems. The control of these me was both privilege and burden, for their misuse could unbalance the world. When humanity began to rediscover fragments of this knowledge after the flood, the Anunnaki grew wary. Enlil, in particular, forbade the reckless pursuit of certain technologies. The tablets hint that humans once attempted to build devices that reached the heavens, leading to divine intervention and destruction, perhaps a memory encoded later in the Tower of Babel story. The message was clear. The Anunnaki had gifted humanity knowledge, but not all knowledge. Some truths were too powerful, too dangerous, too easily corrupted. Evidence of this forgotten science can be glimpsed in the precision of ancient structures. The ziggurats of Sumer, aligned with celestial bodies, the astronomical accuracy of early calendars, the unexplained metallurgy and advanced irrigation techniques, all point to a level of engineering that seems almost anachronistic. How did early humans, barely emerging from the trauma of the flood, develop such sophistication so rapidly? The tablets suggest the answer lies in remnants of Anunnaki instruction, selectively preserved by priests and initiates who swore secrecy. Over time, this secret knowledge fractured. Some of it evolved into religion, others into alchemy, astronomy, and sacred geometry. But certain arts, those that dealt with energy, matter, and life, were hidden completely. The Sumerians believed that attempting to replicate divine machinery would provoke catastrophe, as it had in the distant past. The forbidden technologies became both a legend and a warning. And yet humanity's curiosity never faded. From Babylon to Alexandria, from the temples of Egypt to the libraries of Greece, echoes of the Anunnaki's machines persisted. Tales of engines that flew, crystals that spoke, and metals that remembered commands. To the wise, these were metaphors for divine insight. To the daring, they were blueprints waiting to be rediscovered. Perhaps that is the true legacy of the forbidden technologies, not the machines themselves, but the temptation they represent, the unending human desire to reach beyond the limits set by the gods, to grasp the fire of creation itself. And so the question lingers, even today, was humanity's first fall not one of sin, but of ambition? And if these forbidden tools were ever rediscovered, would history repeat itself? Imagine walking across a barren plain, where the wind whispers secrets of a world long vanished. Beneath your feet lie foundations older than history, and in the distance faint outlines hint at structures that once defied imagination. These are the lost cities of the gods, the pre-flood settlements built under the guidance of the Anunnaki, cities that, according to Sumerian tablets, housed both humans and divine overseers, serving as centers of administration, worship, and cosmic observation. Among the most renowned of these cities was Eridu, the first city of civilization. The tablets describe it as a metropolis of canals, temples, and grand halls, where Enki resided and taught humans the arts of agriculture, writing, and law. The city was a hub of innovation, but more than that, it was a laboratory for human development, a place where mortals were molded to serve a divine purpose. Every brick, every waterway, every ziggurat carried the imprint of knowledge not yet lost, yet now buried beneath millennia of sand. Further north, Uruk stood as a testament to the goddess Inanna. Its walls were said to stretch for miles, adorned with murals depicting celestial events and heroic deeds. The city's ziggurats aligned perfectly with constellations, suggesting that the Anunnaki integrated astronomical precision into architecture. According to the Sumerian records, Uruk was not simply a city, it was a cosmic map, a living temple that connected human life with the rhythms of the heavens. Then there was Nippur, sacred to Enlil, where kings were crowned and divine decrees enforced. This city became a political and spiritual center, bridging the will of the Anunnaki with human governance. Archaeologists today have uncovered remnants of monumental structures that hint at advanced engineering and planning, far beyond what might be expected from early human societies. Could these ruins be the remnants of what the tablets describe as divine collaboration? What makes these cities particularly mysterious is their sudden appearance and disappearance. Unlike the slow evolution of other civilizations, the Anunnaki cities appear fully formed, thriving with infrastructure, knowledge, and complex governance. And yet, many vanished completely after the Great Flood, leaving only scattered ruins and fragments of clay tablets. Some scholars argue these cities were myths, allegorical tools to explain divine intervention. But the archaeological record offers tantalizing hints. Foundations, canals, and artifacts suggesting advanced urban planning that predates written history. The tablets hint at even older, more secretive settlements, buried deeper and hidden from human view. Some cities were said to exist in regions now submerged by rising seas, lost to cataclysmic events, or intentionally concealed. These forbidden cities were the heart of the Anunnaki mission. Mining operations, sacred temples, and experimental zones where humans learned the arts of civilization under close supervision. Locations like Shuruppak and Bad Tibera are cited as centers for metal extraction and temple construction, possibly connected to celestial observatories and energy devices described in the forbidden technologies. Modern researchers and explorers have long speculated about these sites. Satellite imagery, aerial surveys, and archaeological expeditions have uncovered anomalies, straight channels in the desert, submerged structures beneath rivers, and foundations that defy conventional explanation. Could these be the last traces of the Anunnaki's lost cities? Were they erased by the flood, buried deliberately, or hidden by design to preserve their secrets for humanity's future awakening? The story of these cities is not merely one of ruins and stones, it is the story of human civilization's origins and potential. They remind us that knowledge was once shared by gods and men, that the cities were living classrooms where the human experiment was orchestrated, and that our understanding of history may be only a fragment of what truly transpired. And so, the lost cities of the gods endure, not just as archaeological mysteries, but as symbols, proof that humanity once walked beside beings whose wisdom and power shaped the earliest chapters of civilization. The question remains, how much of this knowledge can we reclaim, and how much remains forever buried, awaiting rediscovery by those brave enough to search beneath the sands of time. Beneath the clay tablets and ziggurats of Sumer lies a story that challenges everything we think we know about human origins, the tale of a genetic experiment orchestrated by the Anunnaki. According to the Sumerians, humans were not the product of natural evolution alone. They were crafted, modified, and enhanced by beings from the stars, designed to serve, learn, and inherit knowledge across millennia. The tablets describe the Anunnaki arriving from Nibiru with a clear mission: to extract gold and other precious resources from Earth. To accomplish this, they needed labour, intelligent, resilient, and capable of following complex instructions. Early hominids existed, but they lacked the sophistication for mining, building, and recording information. Enki, known as the master geneticist, is said to have intervened. Using his knowledge, he spliced his own essence with that of early humans, creating Homo sapiens as we know them today. This was not merely myth. The Sumerians encoded it as fact, stating explicitly that humans were the working copy, fashioned in the image of the gods. The process, as described in the texts, was deliberate and meticulous. The Anunnaki selected traits: endurance, intelligence, creativity, and adaptability. They combined these with existing hominid characteristics to produce a being capable of survival, labour, and learning. Enki is often portrayed as a protector, subtly teaching these new human survival skills, language, agriculture, and ritual, while Enlil insisted on obedience, hierarchy, and divine law. Humanity, in effect, became a hybrid species, part organic life, part engineered design, and entirely shaped for a purpose beyond their comprehension. But the experiment did not stop there. The Sumerians hint at further manipulations: interbreeding between humans and Anunnaki bloodlines, the introduction of selective traits across generations, and even the potential for extending lifespans. Many kings of the antediluvian age, with lifespans of tens of thousands of years, may have been direct hybrids or recipients of this genetic enhancement. The distinction between god and human blurred, creating a civilization in which the divine and the mortal coexisted in tangible ways. Modern scientists might dismiss these accounts as allegory, yet there are intriguing parallels. The sudden leaps in cognitive ability, the rapid development of agriculture, and the emergence of writing and mathematics after the flood suggest a sudden infusion of knowledge or capability. Geneticists today are discovering mysteries in human DNA, sequences that appear to have no clear evolutionary origin, remnants of ancient regulatory systems or junk DNA that may encode functions we do not yet understand. Could this be the molecular trace of a deliberate genetic experiment, hidden within us for millennia? The Sumerian texts also warn of the ethical and practical limits of this experiment. The Anunnaki knew that granting humans too much knowledge or power too soon could lead to disaster. The forbidden technologies, the controlled laws, and the hidden archives were all measures to prevent humanity from exceeding its intended capacity. In essence, the genetic experiment came with safeguards, a delicate balance between empowerment and control. Some theorists take this further, suggesting that humanity's potential is still constrained, awaiting the moment when we can fully access our latent capabilities. The tablets describe humans as seeded with knowledge, but not yet awakened, implying that our evolution is ongoing, and that the Anunnaki's experiment is far from complete. Perhaps our curiosity, creativity, and desire to uncover the past are themselves part of the design, the final test of the experiment's success. Ultimately, the genetic experiment challenges the very notion of human autonomy. Were we born from chance evolution, or crafted deliberately to serve a purpose and reach a destiny we barely comprehend? The answer, encoded in clay and preserved across millennia, urges us to look not only outward to the stars but inward, into our own biology, and to consider that the story of humanity is inseparable from the beings who watched, guided, and shaped us long before recorded history. The Anunnaki's experiment is not just a tale of origin, it is a blueprint, a warning, and an invitation. And in our DNA lies the silent record, waiting for the day when humanity finally awakens to its true potential. Look up at the night sky and imagine ancient eyes tracing the patterns of stars, planets, and distant constellations. For the Sumerians, the heavens were more than decoration. They were a cosmic library, a roadmap written by the Anunnaki, guiding humanity's destiny and warning of cycles yet to come. The tablets speak not only of earthly events, but of celestial alignments, forecasting floods, wars, and the rise and fall of kings. These were the earliest prophecies, carefully encoded in both story and science. The Anunnaki taught the Sumerians to observe the stars, to map their movements, and to interpret these alignments as signs. Ziggurats were constructed to align precisely with celestial events, ensuring that rituals, agriculture, and governance coincided with cosmic rhythms. Enki, the god of wisdom, emphasized understanding the heavens as a method of survival, predicting floods, droughts, and seasonal cycles, while Enlil and the Council of Gods encoded warnings of divine judgment and human folly. One of the most intriguing aspects of these prophecies is their connection to Nibiru, the enigmatic 12th planet described in the texts. Its long elliptical orbit, estimated at 3,600 years, was said to influence cataclysmic events on Earth, floods, volcanic eruptions, and shifts in climate. The Sumerians recorded these cycles meticulously, noting correlations between celestial patterns and historical upheaval. Could it be that the warnings embedded in the tablets were meant as survival guides, or were they more ominous, foretelling events that even the gods could not prevent? The tablets also describe stellar conjunctions and alignments that appear to encode the Anunnaki's long-term plans. Kings and priests interpreted these patterns to guide construction, agriculture, and religious observances. Certain alignments were associated with divine favor, others with warnings of impending disaster. The prophecies often blend practical guidance with allegory, a dual purpose that protected knowledge while allowing it to endure through centuries of human interpretation. Interestingly, these celestial prophecies often parallel modern discoveries. The Sumerians tracked lunar and solar cycles, eclipses, and planetary conjunctions with astonishing accuracy, far exceeding what one would expect from a pre-scientific civilization. Some theorists suggest this knowledge was inherited directly from the Anunnaki, a science disguised as prophecy. Others believe that these alignments were intended to teach humans how to observe, calculate, and predict, skills essential for survival and civilization. The prophecies are not merely observational, they are moral and political as well. The tablets warn that humanity's destiny is intertwined with obedience, ethics, and stewardship of the earth. Mismanagement, greed, and hubris are said to provoke the wrath of the gods, manifesting as floods, famine, or social collapse. In this way, celestial alignments acted as both clock and compass, measuring time while guiding behavior. Some of the most remarkable prophecies concern the future of civilization itself. The texts hint at periods when knowledge will be lost, when divine guidance retreats, and when humanity must rediscover its path. Certain tablets suggest that epochs of enlightenment are cyclical, punctuated by cataclysms and resets, much like the flood that erased the antediluvian world. These warnings resonate eerily with modern concerns: environmental degradation, social instability, and cosmic hazards, raising the question, are these prophecies lessons from history or glimpses of events yet to unfold? The Sumerians encoded this wisdom in multiple layers: mathematics, astronomy, and myth. To the casual observer, these are simply stories. To the initiated, they are a map, a bridge between the mortal and the divine, a guide to navigating both earthly challenges and cosmic forces. And so, when we look to the heavens tonight, we may be seeing more than stars. We may be glimpsing the memory of civilizations guided by the Anunnaki, warnings embedded in cosmic cycles, and the enduring question of whether humanity can rise to meet the destiny the gods once envisioned. The celestial alignments and prophecies remind us that time is cyclical, knowledge is sacred, and the heavens are alive with messages, waiting for those who are willing to read them. There comes a moment in every legend when the gods simply vanish. One day, they stand among men, commanding, teaching, shaping destiny, and the next, they are gone, leaving only silence and ruins behind. For the Sumerians, this was not merely myth, but memory, the sudden and mysterious departure of the Anunnaki, the beings who had walked beside humanity since the dawn of civilization. The tablets speak of this departure with reverence and sorrow. It was not a single event, but a gradual withdrawal, a fading of presence that spanned generations. Priests wrote of temples suddenly losing their power, of rituals that no longer summoned the divine response, of signs in the heavens growing dim. The people of Sumer began to wonder, had humanity been abandoned? Or was this departure part of a greater design, a final test to see if we could survive on our own? According to the Enuma Elish and other texts, the Anunnaki convened in council after the Great Flood. The world had been reshaped, and humanity had proven both resilient and dangerous. Enlil, weary of interference, declared that mankind must now govern itself. Enki, compassionate as ever, argued that the spark of wisdom they had implanted should not be left untended. In the end, compromise was reached. The Anunnaki would depart physically, but their knowledge and presence would endure through temples, laws, and symbols. Humanity was to become the steward of its own destiny, guided by memory rather than command. The question is, where did they go? Some texts imply that they returned to Nibiru, their homeworld, awaiting the next orbital cycle when their planet would again approach Earth. Others suggest they retreated to hidden sanctuaries beneath the earth or within mountains, realms invisible to mortal eyes. There are even whispers in the oldest Sumerian hymns of gates in the sky, portals through which the gods ascended, accompanied by thunder and flame. These accounts, poetic as they are, align eerily with modern interpretations of space travel, suggesting that the Anunnaki did not die or disappear, they simply departed for the stars. Archaeological evidence adds fuel to the mystery. Around 2000 BCE, a sudden decline occurs in Sumerian civilization. Temples abandoned, cities emptied, and cultural focus shifting toward new pantheons in Babylon and Assyria. The transition was swift, almost unnatural, as though divine oversight had been abruptly withdrawn. The priests wrote that the gods have turned their faces away, marking the beginning of an age of silence. Yet humanity did not collapse. Instead, we adapted, continued building, and spread across continents, just as the Anunnaki had intended. To many scholars, this disappearance symbolizes the transfer of divine authority. The Anunnaki, having completed their experiment, left humanity to mature. But to others, to those who read between the lines of the tablets, this was not an ending but a pause. The texts speak of a promise that the gods would one day return, when the cycles of the heavens aligned and when humanity reached a stage worthy of reunion. The Sumerians called it the return of the lords of heaven and earth. Could this be the origin of the recurring motif found in nearly every ancient culture? The return of the gods, the promise of saviors descending from the sky, the reawakening of a lost wisdom. From Egypt's Osiris to the Mayan Kukulkan, from the Hindu avatars to the Christian prophecy of the Second Coming, echoes of the Anunnaki's departure and their eventual return reverberate through history. It is as if every civilization carries a fragment of the same memory, each retelling a piece of the same farewell. But perhaps the most haunting idea is that the Anunnaki never truly left at all. Their legacy lives in our language, our symbols, our ambitions, and perhaps even within us, encoded in the very DNA they helped shape. The teachers may have vanished, but their students continue to evolve, guided by a whisper that calls us to explore, to create, and to look once more toward the stars. Their departure was not abandonment, it was graduation. Humanity, once an experiment, had become its own species, curious, flawed, and endlessly reaching upward. And somewhere, beyond the veil of time, the Anunnaki watch, waiting to see if their greatest creation will remember who taught them to dream. Some secrets are buried not in the sands of deserts, nor in the vaults of temples, but in the measure of time itself. The Sumerian tablets whisper of such a secret, one that spans 450,000 years, hidden in plain sight, encoded within the cycles of the heavens, the lifespans of kings, and the very fabric of human DNA. This is the ultimate mystery of the Anunnaki, a story that challenges everything we believe about history, humanity, and the cosmos. According to the tablets, the Anunnaki's intervention on Earth was no recent event. Their arrival, their experiments, their guidance, all occurred far earlier than recorded history. Some interpretations suggest that the 450,000-year figure represents the total duration of their genetic and technological experiments, a timeline over which they shaped life, tested civilizations, and encoded knowledge meant to survive cataclysmic cycles. This is not a tale of centuries or millennia, but of 500,000 years of careful planning, observation, and correction. The secret begins with the creation of humanity itself. Enki's genetic modifications, the implantation of knowledge, and the establishment of the first cities were the initial stages of a program that would span hundreds of millennia. The Sumerians recount epochs of long-lived kings, civilizations that rose and fell, and catastrophic resets like the Great Flood, all part of a larger pattern. Each era was a test, each experiment designed to refine humans and prepare them for a destiny beyond the constraints of ordinary history. What makes this timeline extraordinary is its scale. Ordinary human history as we know it spans only a few thousand years. The Sumerian records imply that our civilization is the latest chapter in a story that began hundreds of thousands of years ago, overseen by beings whose lifespans and perspective dwarfed our own. The Anunnaki were patient architects, guiding, withdrawing, and observing, leaving behind traces in ziggurats, myths, stars, and even our biology. The 450,000-year secret is also encoded in cosmic cycles. The Sumerians measured planetary movements, predicting cataclysms, floods, and epochs of enlightenment. Nibiru's long orbit, recurring roughly every 3,600 years, was but one marker of a far greater celestial rhythm. The Anunnaki, the texts suggest, used these cycles to determine when to intervene, when to withdraw, and when to test humanity's development. Each cycle left a mark, a piece of evidence for those willing to decipher it across millennia. But what exactly is the secret? Many scholars and theorists believe it is this: humanity is not merely the product of random evolution, nor the sole architect of civilization. We are the outcome of a careful, deliberate program designed to create beings capable of both divine understanding and moral choice. The flood, the genetic experiments, the knowledge imparted, all were part of this grand experiment, and we are still in its final stages. The Sumerians hint at a future culmination. Humanity, having endured cycles of growth and destruction, now stands at a crossroads. The secret is not just about the past, it is about potential. Within us lies the inherited wisdom, the encoded memory of the Anunnaki, and the dormant capacities for understanding, innovation, and cosmic awareness. The tablets imply that our awakening is inevitable, provided we recognize our origins and embrace the knowledge that has been preserved for us. Some suggest that remnants of the 450,000-year plan are embedded in myths, sacred architecture, and even the human genome, waiting for those with the insight to decode them. Others see it as a warning. The Anunnaki's experiments are delicate, and misuse of knowledge or power could repeat past disasters. The secret, therefore, is both gift and responsibility, a challenge as much as a revelation. As we piece together the tablets, the ruins, and the myths, one truth becomes clear. The story of humanity is not linear. It is a web of cycles, interventions, and awakening that stretches back nearly 500,000 years. The Anunnaki, their technologies, their genetic experiments, and their prophecies were all part of a plan far greater than mere survival. They sought to create not just life, but conscious, self-aware stewards of Earth, beings capable of understanding their place in the cosmos. And so, the 450,000-year secret remains. Humanity is older, stranger, and more extraordinary than we have ever imagined. The past is a doorway, the myths are maps, and the future, encoded in our very DNA, awaits those who dare to remember. Even after the departure of the Anunnaki, traces of their knowledge lingered, hidden in plain sight yet nearly inaccessible to ordinary humans. The Sumerians referred to these as hidden archives, repositories of wisdom left by the gods themselves. They were not merely libraries of texts, they were living codices, encoding celestial alignments, advanced technologies, and genetic knowledge in forms humans could not fully decipher. These archives were scattered across sacred sites, buried deep beneath ziggurats, hidden in subterranean tunnels, and concealed in the walls of temples. Each tablet, carving, or artifact served as a key to understanding the Anunnaki's grand experiment. But only for those initiated into the esoteric knowledge. Priests, scribes, and select rulers were entrusted with these secrets. passing them down through generations, often disguising their true meaning in metaphor, allegory, or ritual. Consider the Abu Salabic tablets, recovered in modern times, which describe the ways of the gods in painstaking detail. At first glance, they appear as records of ritual, law, or administrative order, yet when examined in conjunction with other artifacts, star maps, ziggurat alignments, and mythic accounts, a startling pattern emerges. The Anunnaki left humans a blueprint for civilization itself, encoded in both tangible and symbolic form. Some theorists suggest that these hidden archives even extend beyond Earth. Ancient myths hint at stargates, portals, or celestial libraries, places where the Anunnaki stored knowledge beyond human reach. Could these stories point to extraterrestrial repositories, or do they represent encoded warnings and instructions meant to survive the decay of time and memory? Throughout history, civilizations have sought these lost archives, from Babylonian astronomers to Egyptian priests, from the mystery schools of Greece to the secret societies of the Renaissance. There seems to be a continuous pursuit of the Anunnaki's hidden wisdom. Could it be that this quest is the true thread connecting human culture across continents and epochs? Yet, the archives were perilous. The Sumerians warned that tampering with knowledge before one was ready could lead to catastrophe. Echoes of the flood, the forbidden technologies, and human overreach. This warning has resonated across myths worldwide. The Tower of Babel, Pandora's box, and tales of lost civilizations are reminders that knowledge is power, but dangerous power. The hidden archives remain tantalizingly elusive, yet their influence is undeniable. Every ancient city, every sacred alignment, and every encoded myth can be read as a fragment of a vast, multi-layered puzzle. The question lingers: what truths are still buried, waiting for humanity to discover them? Could these archives hold the key to understanding our origins, unlocking latent potential, or even reconnecting with the beings who shaped our earliest history? Ultimately, the hidden archives reveal the profound vision of the Anunnaki. They were not mere gods or rulers, they were teachers, architects, and custodians of knowledge, guiding humanity with foresight, care, and caution. And although they withdrew from direct contact, the archives were their legacy, a challenge and an invitation to uncover the story of human civilization in its fullest, most extraordinary form. Beneath every strand of human DNA lies a story older than civilization itself, a record not just of evolution, but of design. According to the Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki did not merely create humans, they encoded warnings, instructions, and potential within our very genetic makeup. The genome itself became a living archive, a blueprint that carries messages across time, waiting for the moment when humanity is capable of decoding it. The texts hint at a deliberate pattern. Certain sequences, described metaphorically as gates of life, or threads of the gods, are said to contain knowledge meant to guide humanity in moments of crisis. Some scholars argue that these sequences correspond to genes responsible for intelligence, intuition, or even heightened awareness, the latent capacities of human consciousness. Could it be that our DNA is not only biological, but instructional, a vessel for messages left by the Anunnaki themselves? And the Sumerians claim that tampering with these codes could be dangerous. Enki's guidance, preserved in clay tablets, warns of awakening before understanding, echoing a theme found across myths: the flood, forbidden technologies, and catastrophic overreach. The message is clear: knowledge and capability must be accessed with preparation, wisdom, and reverence. In essence, humanity carries both potential and peril within its genes. Modern science offers curious parallels. Researchers have discovered sequences in human DNA that seem anomalous, genetic junk that does not follow conventional evolutionary explanations. Some theorists suggest these regions could be the remnants of the Anunnaki's genetic interventions, warning codes, dormant instructions, or memory fragments waiting to activate under certain conditions. While mainstream science views these sequences as evolutionary leftovers, the Sumerian perspective paints them as deliberate, purposeful, and filled with latent meaning. The tablets also describe cycles of awakening. Humans, according to the Anunnaki, would experience periods of enlightenment, loss, and rediscovery. These cycles are encoded in our genes, reflected in development, cognition, and the rise and fall of civilizations. Certain abilities, intuition, creativity, and the drive to explore the cosmos may emerge as signals that the latent instructions are activating. It is as if the Anunnaki left humanity a time-release mechanism, a way to unlock potential gradually, ensuring survival while testing moral and intellectual growth. Yet the warning codes are not merely about potential, they are about responsibility. The Anunnaki foresaw that unchecked ambition, misuse of knowledge, or destructive behavior could lead to catastrophes reminiscent of the Great Flood. The tablets caution that humans must align with cosmic principles, respect the cycles of nature, and honor the wisdom inherited from the gods. Our DNA is thus both a gift and a guide, a map to our origins and a compass for navigating the future. Some modern theorists suggest that technological, spiritual, and genetic breakthroughs are signs that humanity is beginning to awaken these codes. Advances in genome editing, consciousness studies, and artificial intelligence may not be coincidences but echoes of the Anunnaki's design, a slowly unfolding plan to bring humanity into alignment with its full potential. Ultimately, the warning codes in our DNA serve as a bridge between past and future, between mortality and divinity, between human curiosity and cosmic design. They are a reminder that we are not the product of chance alone but of intention, shaped, guided, and preserved by beings whose understanding of time, life, and the universe far exceeds our own. The question now is whether humanity will heed the silent instructions woven into our very being. Will we awaken the latent wisdom, recognize the cycles, and honor the gift of guidance left by the Anunnaki? Or will we, like our ancestors, repeat the mistakes that once triggered divine intervention? The answers lie not only in our history but in our biology, waiting, patient, encoded, and profound. Across the ancient world, from Mesopotamia to Egypt, from the Indus Valley to the Andes, one pattern repeats with haunting precision. Civilizations that should have had no contact share the same stars, aligned to the same constellations, carved in stone, drawn on clay, and built into the foundations of temples and pyramids. The Sumerians, the oldest of them all, claimed they were given these maps of the heavens by their gods, the Anunnaki, who taught them to read the sky as both clock and compass. The Sumerian star maps were no ordinary charts. They depicted constellations not visible to the naked eye, planets whose existence would only be confirmed thousands of years later, and orbits that defied ancient observation. Most mysterious of all was the inclusion of a 12th celestial body, a wandering planet beyond Pluto, the fabled Nibiru, home of the Anunnaki. To modern scholars, this is impossible. To the ancients, it was fact. The Molapin tablets, one of the earliest known star catalogues, record knowledge of precise equinoxes, solstices, and celestial motions that even later civilizations struggled to replicate. But hidden among these astronomical details is something stranger, a series of encoded geometries that do not merely describe the sky above, but the sky as seen from elsewhere. Some researchers have speculated that these maps depict not just Earth's heavens, but the perspective of the gods, their home system, their point of origin. It is this element that has earned the name Forbidden. For centuries, the idea that ancient humanity possessed interstellar knowledge was dismissed as fantasy. Yet, across multiple tablets, carvings, and cylinder seals, the Sumerians consistently show the same arrangement: a central sun surrounded by 12 celestial bodies, one of which follows an elongated path, exactly as the Anunnaki described. According to the tablets, these star maps were not meant for ordinary mortals. They were sacred instruments, reserved for priest astronomers and kings, used to predict cosmic alignments and divine the return of the gods. One inscription, partially eroded but still legible, warns, "When the wandering star draws near, the watchers shall descend once more." Whether poetic or prophetic, this line has captivated historians and theorists alike. Archaeologists have found similar star alignments in unexpected places: the Giza Plateau, Teotihuacan, Angkor Wat, all oriented towards celestial configurations that correspond to the same ancient template found in Sumer. How could distant cultures separated by oceans and millennia have mirrored the same stellar architecture? The Forbidden Star maps may hold the answer, a shared memory of a time when the sky itself was the teacher and the gods were the cartographers. Some propose that these maps are not merely depictions but instructions, a guide to re-establish contact with the Anunnaki. The positioning of ziggurats, temples, and monuments may act as terrestrial markers, forming a planetary grid that mirrors the heavens. The theory suggests that when these alignments synchronize with certain celestial events, a resonance is created, a form of communication not of sound or light, but of frequency. Could it be that the Sumerians left us a way to call back the gods? Others offer a more grounded explanation. Perhaps these maps are the record of a lost global civilization, one that once spanned continents and passed down its knowledge before vanishing into myth. Either way, the Forbidden Star maps challenge the linear view of history. They suggest that humanity once possessed, or was given, a knowledge of the cosmos that surpasses even our modern understanding. The implications are staggering. If the Sumerians truly mapped the heavens with divine precision, then our origins, and perhaps our future, are tied not just to the Earth, but to the stars. The forbidden maps may not be warnings of doom or gateways to contact, but mirrors, reminding us that our story is part of a much grander cosmic tapestry, one drawn across the night sky, waiting for those who remember how to read it. Imagine the sky as a clock, ticking not in hours, but in tens of thousands of years. The Sumerians, guided by the Anunnaki, believed that the universe moves in cycles, vast cosmic rhythms that dictate the rise and fall of civilizations, the ebb and flow of knowledge, and even the timing of the gods themselves. Central to this worldview was the concept of the return cycle, the moment when the Anunnaki would once again approach Earth, bringing revelation, judgment, and perhaps the next stage of humanity's evolution. The tablets are cryptic but compelling. They describe Nibiru's long orbit, the wandering star whose passage marks cataclysmic events and divine interventions. Each orbit, estimated at roughly 3,600 years, is said to correspond with a phase of human development. Some cycles bring prosperity and enlightenment, others bring calamity and upheaval. The return cycle, they suggest, is the culmination of these cycles, a time when the knowledge, presence, and authority of the Anunnaki are reintroduced to humanity. The texts use coded language to describe this return. The watchers will descend when the heavens align, and the gates of destiny shall open. These gates are not merely physical portals, but symbolic thresholds, moments when human consciousness aligns with cosmic rhythms, when the latent capacities embedded by the Anunnaki are activated, and when our species faces a choice, evolve or repeat past mistakes. Interestingly, the return cycle is not presented as a single event, but as a series of stages, each marked by celestial, environmental, and social signs. The Sumerians wrote of unusual solar and lunar activity, shifts in planetary positions, and changes in climate as harbingers of the approaching cycle. On Earth, upheavals in leadership, sudden discoveries of ancient knowledge, and the rise of new technologies were interpreted as echoes of the gods' approach. In this way, the cycle is both cosmic and terrestrial, a bridge between the heavens and the mortal realm. Some theorists argue that we are currently within the early stages of a return cycle. They point to the acceleration of technological advancement, the resurgence of interest in ancient civilizations, and discoveries of a lost knowledge, from hidden archives to forbidden star maps, as evidence that the Anunnaki's influence is stirring once more. Others caution that the cycle is not deterministic. It is a test of readiness, and humanity must prove itself capable of handling the power and wisdom that the return would bring. The Sumerians also encoded warnings in the cycle. Previous returns, they wrote, coincided with disasters, floods, social collapse, and violent upheavals. The return cycle is, therefore, not simply a promise of reunion with the gods, but a challenge, a reckoning of human behavior. Those who misuse knowledge, act recklessly, or ignore the laws embedded in the universe risk repeating the cataclysms of the past. In essence, the cycle is a cosmic measure of responsibility. Yet, the tablets are hopeful as well as cautionary. The return cycle implies that humanity is approaching a stage of awakening. Those who recognize the patterns, decode the hidden knowledge, and align with cosmic principles may access the wisdom left by the Anunnaki. The cycle suggests that enlightenment is possible, but only through understanding, discipline, and a conscious choice to embrace the legacy of the gods. Ultimately, the return cycle is more than prophecy. It is a mirror reflecting the lessons of 450,000 years, the creation, guidance, withdrawal, and potential future of humanity. It reminds us that time is vast, that knowledge is layered, and that our destiny is intertwined with forces both seen and unseen. The Anunnaki may have left the physical world, but their influence continues, woven into DNA, embedded in myths, and written across the stars. As we consider the return cycle today, the question lingers: will humanity rise to meet the challenge, or will we falter under the weight of our own ignorance? The clock ticks, the stars align, and the watchers wait. The cycle is ongoing, and the next chapter is ours to write. After 450,000 years of hidden guidance, experimentation, and cycles of civilization, the final question remains: what is the secret the Anunnaki left for humanity? The answer, encoded in tablets, star maps, and our very DNA, is not a simple revelation. It is a call to awakening, an invitation to recognize the truth of our origins, the depth of our potential, and the responsibilities that come with such knowledge. The Sumerian tablets insist that humanity is more than a species. We are the culmination of a carefully orchestrated experiment, a hybrid creation designed to inherit wisdom, creativity, and moral responsibility. The flood, the forbidden technologies, the hidden archives, all were steps in a grand plan. And though the Anunnaki departed, leaving humanity to its own devices, they embedded clues, safeguards, and instructions that persist even today. To awaken is to decipher these messages, not just in artifacts, but in ourselves. DNA, the cosmic blueprint, carries the most profound secrets. As we've explored, certain sequences seem anomalous, as though designed with foresight. The Sumerians hinted that these are warning codes and latent instructions, meant to guide humanity when the time is right. To awaken is to recognize these codes, to understand that evolution is not merely random but directed, and to appreciate that our capacity for insight, innovation, and cosmic understanding was gifted intentionally. The forbidden star maps, once hidden from ordinary eyes, now offer another key. They chart not only the heavens above but the cycles of history, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the timing of the Anunnaki's interventions. By studying these maps, humanity may perceive the return cycle, anticipating moments of cosmic alignment that coincide with opportunities for discovery and growth. To awaken is to read the sky as our ancestors were instructed to do, connecting the terrestrial and the celestial in a grand narrative that spans 500,000 years. But awakening is not just about understanding the past. The return cycle, the hidden archives, and the warning codes all converge to teach a single truth. Humanity is approaching a moment of choice and potential transformation. We stand at a crossroads where knowledge, wisdom, and technology converge. Misuse could echo the disasters of antiquity. Understanding could open a new era of enlightenment. The secret, therefore, is dual. It is both gift and responsibility. Perhaps the most profound element of the secret is the recognition of cycles. The Anunnaki, through observation and guidance, demonstrated that history is not linear but rhythmic, that civilizations rise, fall, and are renewed through patterns encoded in the cosmos. To awaken is to see these patterns in ourselves, in societies, in scientific progress, in the moral decisions we make. By understanding cycles, humanity can navigate them wisely, avoiding catastrophe while embracing opportunity. And yet the awakening is also deeply personal. Each human carries traces of the Anunnaki's experiment, memory, potential, and the spark of divine influence. The secret suggests that the journey toward understanding is internal as well as external. By reflecting, learning, and seeking knowledge, we honor the intentions of the Anunnaki and embrace the latent potential they embedded within us. Finally, the secret challenges us to look forward. Humanity is no longer merely a product of the past. We are active participants in the final chapters of a story that began hundreds of thousands of years ago. The Anunnaki may have departed physically, but their legacy is alive in our architecture, myths, stars, and genes. The awakening is the recognition that we are now the stewards of our destiny, capable of accessing the wisdom of the ancients and shaping the future in ways the gods themselves once imagined. As we awaken to this 450,000-year secret, the ultimate question emerges: will humanity rise to the potential written in its own being, in the heavens, and in the hidden archives left by the Anunnaki. The choice is ours, the moment is now, and the cycle continues. The watchers wait, the stars align, and the secrets of 500,000 years whisper, inviting us to awaken, before history closes the chapter again.